From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, May the 19th, 2021. The rocket assault from Gaza into southern and central Israel and this evening at northern Israel continues today. The IDF said some 50 rockets were launched by Palestinian terror groups last night. Most were intercepted by the Iron Dome, with others falling in open areas. No injuries were reported there. 10 of the rockets fell short, landing in Gaza. Today, barrages of rockets were fired at southern and central Israel. The IDF estimated 200 rockets had been fired at Israel from 7 a.m. local time to 7 p.m. local time in Israel, including at the cities of Beersheba and Rehovot, as well as at Ashkelon and Ashdod, sending residents running for shelter. One rocket landed in a public park in Ashdod. There were no injuries there. Personnel coming to examine the impact site had to then run for shelter when red alert sirens sounded again. Other rockets sparked fires, and there was also major damage to homes in the Eshkol region and in Sderot in particular, where a 65-year-old man was moderately injured. IDF jets, in response to the rocket attacks last night, struck a number of terror targets in Gaza, including some 40 underground targets, part of Hamas's 7 miles long so-called metro of terror tunnels. And later today, sirens sounded in northern Israel, including in the cities of Haifa and Akko, with 4 rockets fired from Lebanon. One of the rockets was intercepted by the Iron Dome. A second landed in an open field in the Arab-Israeli town of Shfar'am, and 2 landed at sea. No injuries were reported, though a 43-year-old woman suffered cardiac arrest while running to a bomb shelter during the rocket attack. She was said to be in serious condition. It is unclear at this point if the rockets were fired by Lebanese-based Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah or by Palestinian terror groups in Lebanon. IDF artillery cannons returned fire at the source of the rocket launches. The IDF said today that a Palestinian family of 8 killed last week, which was blamed on Israel, were in fact killed by a Gaza rocket that fell short. The Times of Israel cited IDF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus saying this wasn't an Israeli attack, citing also a senior military officer who said the incident was investigated and it was confirmed that Israel did not strike the area of Beit Hanun where the family was killed. The 2 victims from a Gaza rocket attack yesterday at a packing plant in Moshav Ohad in southern Israel were named today as 44-year-old Viravat Kronburirak and 24-year-old Sikrin Sagmarm, both foreign agricultural workers, citizens of Thailand. And in the West Bank today, a Palestinian woman opened fire at Israeli soldiers near the Jewish settlement of Kiryat Arba. The IDF said the terrorist, armed with an M16 rifle, arrived at Elias Junction near Hebron. The terrorists started shooting while advancing towards IDF troops and civilians at a bus stop. She was shot and killed by 2 IDF soldiers at the scene. No IDF injuries were reported. Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a situational briefing at the Kiryat, the IDF's headquarters in Tel Aviv, to some 70 foreign diplomats in Israel, showing them the vast terror tunnels dug by Hamas in Gaza. Hebrew media reports of the closed-door meeting said that Netanyahu told the group, "We are engaged right now in forceful deterrence." When asked when a ceasefire might be coming, the Prime Minister is cited as saying, "We aren't standing with a stopwatch. We are concerned with the objectives of the operation." And Netanyahu had another phone call today with U.S. President Joe Biden about the current situation. The White House said that the two leaders had a detailed discussion on the state of events in Gaza, Israel's progress in degrading the capabilities of Hamas and other terrorist elements, and ongoing diplomatic efforts by regional governments and the United States. The president conveyed to the prime minister that he expected a significant de-escalation today on the path to a ceasefire. Netanyahu later, after leaving a military assessment meeting in Tel Aviv, did not directly comment on the president's remarks, but rather only saying that he greatly appreciates Biden's support of Israel's right to defend itself, and telling the Israeli public, "I am determined to continue this operation until its goal is achieved, to bring back peace and security to you, the citizens of Israel." And closer to home, a disturbing report today that Jewish diners at a restaurant in Los Angeles were attacked last night in what appears to have been an anti-Semitic hate crime. CBS LA reports the incident, captured on cell phone video, took place at the Sushi Fumi restaurant in Beverly Grove just before 10 p.m. local time last night. Witnesses said a group of Palestinians or pro-Palestinians jumped out of their vehicle and asked the diners who was Jewish. Two men responded that they were, and the Palestinian men started beating the Jewish men while yelling anti-Semitic slurs. Another man who was dining with the group, who himself is not Jewish but reportedly an Arab Christian, jumped in to help the Jewish men. He was injured himself, pepper sprayed, and had to be taken to the hospital. He told CBS LA that a caravan waving Palestinian flags had approached the area and then began throwing bottles at him and the group that he was dining with. The LA-based Israeli-American Council said, "We condemn this hate crime in the strongest possible terms and urge authorities to find and prosecute those responsible to the fullest extent of the law." The LA office of the Anti-Defamation League tweeted, "We are outraged over reports of an anti-Semitic assault on diners at an LA restaurant, thanking the LAPD for investigating the incident as a possible hate crime." They stressed criticism of Israeli policy is not always anti-Semitic. Violent attacks while yelling anti-Semitic slurs is a hate crime. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, May the 19th at 7 o'clock, we'll hear from Jewish teenagers who discuss the findings of a recent survey of their generation's attitudes and behavior. At 8, award-winning producer and journalist covering Palestinian affairs for the Jerusalem Post, Khalid Abu Tomeh, offers a first-hand perspective of the stumbling blocks that deny a better future for Palestinians and Israelis alike. At 9, Mark Golub speaks with Israeli activist Einat Wilf and Israeli journalist Adi Schwartz, who talk about the Palestinian insistence on a right of return. At 10:30, the late Larry King speaks at the 2017 Jerusalem Post Conference. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, May the 19th, 2021. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well.